Welcome back to the deep dive. Today's going to be weird
Yeah, very weird.
because usually, we are digging into history or we're breaking down a scientific paper that just came out. We deal in facts. We deal in what has already happened.
Or what is happening right now in the present.
Exactly. But today we're looking at a ghost story, but not a ghost from the past, a ghost from the future.
That's a very dramatic way to frame it, but honestly, it fits. It really does. We have a document in front of us today that is effectively a memory from the future.
Right. It's a piece of analysis from the team at Citrini Research, but they didn't write it as a standard forecast.
Yeah.
They didn't just say, we predict X will happen in a few years.
No, they wrote it as a macro memo dated June 30th, 2028.
Which, for everyone checking their calendars right now, is more than 2 years from now. Because we are sitting here recording this deep dive in February 2026. And looking out the window right now, things look pretty good. The stock market is screaming. The S&P 500 is flirting with all-time highs. The NASDAQ is just absolute rocket fuel right now. I mean, everyone is talking about the roaring 20s finally arriving.
The mood out there is euphoric. The AI boom is in full swing. If you hold NVIDIA or Microsoft or any of the big tech players in your portfolio, you feel like a genius right now.
You do. And then you read this memo, and it's like someone just turned off the lights at the party and locked the doors.
Yeah, it's chilling.
Because this document asks us to step 2 years forward and look back at how all this euphoria collapsed. But here's the hook that grabbed me, and frankly, the part that kept me up staring at the ceiling last night.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It's not a crash caused by failure.
Right.
Usually when we talk about tech bubbles bursting, it's because the tech just didn't work, Like the dot-com crash happened because pets.com didn't actually have a viable business model.
The internet was real, but the specific companies were hollow.
Exactly. But this scenario posits something totally different. What if the AI bulls are 100% right?
Right. What if the technology is actually better than we even think it is?
What if it delivers on every single promise? What if it writes code perfectly? What if it negotiates better than a human? What if it manages complex projects flawlessly? The core question of this entire deep dive today is, what if AI succeeding is actually what breaks the economy?
It's the paradox of abundant intelligence. We are just so used to thinking that more capability equals more wealth. That is the fundamental equation of the last 200 years of industrial capitalism. Better machines make us richer.
But this memo argues that when intelligence becomes infinite and free, the economic model we've built on scarce intelligence completely implodes.
Exactly. So our mission today for you listening is to reconstruct this postmortem. We are going to trace the timeline month by month from where we are right now, the absolute peak of the party, to the intelligence displacement spiral of 2028.
So let's paint the picture of the destination first. If we travel to June 2028, according to this memo, what does the United States look like?
It is grim. It's a stark, violent contrast to the world we see today. In this scenario, unemployment has just crossed into double digits, 10.2%.
10.2. That's severe recession territory. That's bordering on depression numbers, depending on how long it drags out.
And the stock market, which everyone in 2026 thought was invincible, is down 38% from the highs.
Wow.
But it's not just the numbers, it's the mood of the country. The document describes the traders and the general public as being numb.
Numb.
Yeah. You know how right now, if the jobs report comes in even slightly hot, the market freaks out? Or if inflation ticks up 0.1%, everyone loses their minds on financial TV.
Oh, yeah. All they talk about.
In 2028, the shocks are so constant and the structural damage is so deep that a terrible jobs report is just Tuesday. They're numb to it.
The new normal is just a broken normal.
Precisely. And the most chilling part of the memo is how it describes the present day, our present day, late 2025 and early 2026. It calls it the trap.
Let's talk about the trap, because looking at my portfolio right now, it does not feel like a trap. It feels like I bought a winning lottery ticket.
But that's how traps work, right? The cheese has to look really good. The trap in this scenario is the productivity boom.
Okay, walk me through this. Because productivity boom sounds amazing. If we are more productive, we make more stuff, we have more money. That's economics 101.
In a normal economy, yes. But let's look at the catalyst here. The memo identifies a step function jump in something called agentic coding in late 2025.
We hear this term agents thrown around a lot. But I feel like for most people, it just means a chatbot that remembers what I said yesterday.
No, this is vastly different. Agentic coding isn't just saying, hey, help me write this Python function. It's more like, here is the login to our server environment. Here is the corporate credit card for the cloud provider. Build this entire app from scratch, test it, deploy it, and email me when it's live.
So it's true autonomy.
It's autonomy. And the memo describes a very specific realization that hits chief information officers, CIOs across the entire corporate world. They realize that a single, fairly competent human developer using tools like Claude Code or Codex can replicate the core functionality of a mid-market SaaS product in weeks.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back on this a little bit. I know a lot of developers. Code is messy. It's spaghetti. You have legacy systems. You have intricate security protocols. Can an AI really just rebuild Salesforce in a weekend? That sounds like venture capital hype.
And that skepticism you have right there, that is exactly why the market stayed up for so long. Everyone thought it's too complex, the AI can't handle the edge cases, it'll break.
Right.
But the memo argues that the step function was the AI's newfound ability to reason through those edge cases. It didn't need to copy the messy spaghetti code line by line, it just needed to understand the underlying function. It looks at the goal and says, oh, you need a database that tracks customers and logs sales calls. Can build that from scratch in perfectly clean code in 4 hours.
So it doesn't try to fix the old broken car, it just 3D prints a brand new Ferrari right next to it.
Perfect analogy. And this leads to this incredible anecdote in the source material about a procurement manager at a Fortune 500 company. I think this story perfectly encapsulates how the trap actually snaps shut.
I loved this part. It's so utterly mundane,
Yeah.
but the economic implications are nuclear.
Right. So, set the scene. You have this procurement manager. Let's call him Dave. Dave is a boring guy. Dave just wants to lower his department's costs. He's on a Zoom call with the software vendor. Let's say it's a company that provides, I don't know, HR tracking software.
And the vendor is doing the usual enterprise sales stance. Hey, Dave, great to see you. Inflation is up, our server costs are up, so we're going to need to raise your contract price by 5% this year.
Which is standard. That's the SaaS tax. Companies just pay it because switching providers is a nightmare. You aren't going to migrate your entire global HR database just to save 5%. The friction protects the vendor.
But this time, Dave doesn't just sigh and sign the PDF.
No. Dave leans back and says, actually, I've been talking to our internal tech team. We have some forward-deployed engineers from OpenAI working with us now. They took a look at your software. They think they can build a clone of it functionally identical for our needs in-house using these new agentic tools.
And here's the kicker. Dave might be completely bluffing, or maybe he's not.
Yeah.
But does the vendor really want to find out?
That's the key. The vendor freezes.
Yeah.
Because they know the tech is getting that good. They know their moat was just millions of lines of code, and code is suddenly incredibly cheap to produce. So what happens? The vendor panics. They don't just waive the 5% increase. They actively negotiate against themselves and renew the contract at a 30% discount.
A 30% discount. That is massive, massive deflation.
It's incredible for Dave's company. They just saved millions of dollars on their balance sheet. But zoom out for a second. Multiply Dave by every single procurement manager in the Global 2000. Every software contract renewal in 2026 becomes a hostage negotiation where the buyer has a nuclear weapon sitting on the table. The threat of, I can build your product myself.
So corporate revenue for these software vendors starts to evaporate. But, and this is the ghost GDP concept the memo introduces, productivity is technically going up, right?
Yeah.
Dave's company is spending way less money to get the exact same result.
Exactly. And this is where the economic numbers start lying to us. They coin this term ghost GDP.
Explain that for us. Because if GDP is up, we are supposed to be cheering. That's a good economy.
Think about the basic GDP formula from macroeconomics. GDP equals consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. C plus I plus G plus X minus M.
Okay, I'm with you.
In this 2026 scenario, corporate profits are exploding because operational costs, mostly labor and software, are crashing. Investment, the I in the formula, explodes because companies are buying endless AI chips and server space. So the headline GDP number looks huge. It looks like the biggest economic boom in history.
That's a ghost.
It's a ghost because the consumption part, the C, which is usually 70% of the U.S. economy, is being hollowed out from the inside. The memo puts it brilliantly. It says, a GPU cluster in a data center in North Dakota might produce the same economic output as 10,000 white-collar workers in Manhattan.
Right.
But here's the catch. GPUs don't buy lattes.
That's the line that really stuck with me. GPs don't buy lattes. They don't buy apartments. They don't buy premium denim jeans. They don't take their kids to Disney World.
They don't pay rent. They don't pay income taxes. The velocity of money, the number of times a single dollar moves from person to person in the real economy, it flatlines.
Yeah.
You have this massive creation of digital value, but the value just sits there on corporate balance sheets. It doesn't circulate.
So we have a supply-side utopia, infinite cheap software and services, and a demand-side apocalypse brewing right beneath it because no one is actually earning the money to buy the stuff.
And that is the trap. The stock market sees the profit margins first. So stocks go up. The layoffs and the massive consumption drop come later. That's the lag in the system. And while we were all celebrating the Dow hitting 45,000, the floorboards were completely rotting out.
So let's move to the first domino. The moment the floor actually gives way. The memo dates this to late 2026. They call it the death of SaaS.
Specifically, October 2026, the ServiceNow moment.
Now, ServiceNow is a giant. For anyone who hasn't worked in a massive corporation, they are essentially the plumbing of the corporate world. Workflow automation, IT ticketing. If you work at a big company, you use ServiceNow.
They are the ultimate bellwether for enterprise software. In this timeline, they released their Q3 earnings in October, and it is an absolute bloodbath. But the reason is what really matters here. It's not because they had a bad product or a data breach. It's because of a mechanism the memo calls reflexivity.
Reflexivity, that's a George Soros term, right? The idea that market participants actually change the fundamentals of the market itself through their actions.
Exactly. In this case, it's all about the pricing model. ServiceNow, just like Salesforce or Workday or Microsoft, charges per seat. If you have 10,000 employees, you buy 10,000 licenses. But ServiceNow's clients are aggressively using AI to become more efficient. They are using the agentic coding and agentic ops we just talked about. So a massive client realizes, hey, we can automate half of our HR and IT departments. We can cut 15% of our total staff.
And when they cut the staff?
They cancel the software licenses for those staff members.
Oh, I see. So by providing the very tools that help their clients become more efficient, ServiceNow is actively destroying its own revenue base.
It's pure cannibalization. The better the automation tech works, the fewer humans are needed. The fewer humans needed, the fewer per seat licenses sold. The revenue shrinks precisely because the technology is succeeding.
That is a vicious, vicious cycle. So what does a massive company like ServiceNow do in that situation? They can't just tell their clients to stop using AI.
No, they would die immediately. A competitor would eat them. So they do the only thing they can do to survive Wall Street. They join the race to the bottom. They say, okay, top line revenue is down. We need to protect our profit margins. We need to cut our own internal costs. How do they cut costs?
They fire their own people.
And replace them with AI.
So they fire thousands of people, which means they cancel their own licenses for other software tools they use.
Which causes those software companies to fire their people.
It's a total contagion.
It is a feedback loop from hell. The memo makes a fascinating point here. It notes that usually incumbent companies die because they resist change. Blockbuster died because they laughed at Netflix. Kodak died because they literally hid the digital camera they invented.
Right, the classic innovator's dilemma.
But here, the incumbents aren't resisting at all. They are adopting AI faster than anyone else. The memo specifically says the companies most threatened by AI became AI's most aggressive adopters. They're literally eating their own tails to stay alive for one more quarter.
And differentiation just collapses. If I can build a ServiceNow clone in a week with an AI agent, and you can build one in a week with an AI agent, then the market price of that software rapidly approaches zero.
Exactly. Margins collapse across the board. The traditional moat of having a big, complex software suite just evaporates into thin air.
Okay, so that's the corporate world. That's the B2B sector melting down. But I feel like a lot of people listening to this might be thinking, well, I don't work in enterprise SaaS sales. I'm a consumer. I'm a regular person. This sounds like a Wall Street problem.
And that is exactly where Section 3 of the memo comes in. Friction goes to zero. This is the moment where the AI spills out of the corporate server racks and directly into your pocket.
Intermediation crisis of early 2027.
This starts with the rise of consumer agents. And we need to be crystal clear about what this actually means. Because this isn't Siri setting a timer for your pasta. This isn't ChatGPT writing a funny poem about your dog.
What are we talking about then?
We are talking about a highly capable AI that runs in the background of your digital life 24/7 with explicit permission to spend your money and manage your accounts. The memo cites a crazy metric. By March 2027, the median individual consumer is using 400,000 tokens of compute per day.
400,000 tokens. That's like reading War and Peace every single day.
It's the AI constantly, tirelessly reading terms of service, checking dynamic pricing, negotiating refunds with customer service bots, monitoring your subscriptions. And the very first thing this army of consumer agents attacks is the rent extraction layer of the economy.
Rent extraction,
Yeah.
which is just a polite economist term for ripping people off because they're too lazy to switch providers.
Harsh, but mathematically accurate. Think about the U.S. consumer economy. How much of it is built purely on friction? Why do you personally have that gym membership you haven't used in 8 months?
Because to cancel it, I have to physically drive to the gym, find a manager named Chad, and listen to him pitch me on staying for 20 minutes. I would literally rather pay $30 a month than go talk to Chad.
Exactly. That $30 is the friction premium. Or think about auto insurance. Why do you stay with Geico or State Farm for 10 years even though your rate keeps creeping up every 6 months?
Because reshopping for car insurance is the most boring activity known to man. You have to fill out a dozen web forms. It takes hours.
Right. Laziness, inertia, complexity. These are the absolute pillars of profit for the Fortune 500 consumer brands. Now imagine you have a digital agent. It doesn't get bored filling out forms. It doesn't get socially awkward talking to Chad at the gym. It has infinite patience.
So I just tell my agent, go get me the best price on everything in my life.
And it does it instantly. The memo describes the subscription apocalypse. Consumer agents start automatically negotiating every hostage situation. Gyms, streaming services, digital newspapers. They cancel anything you don't use the second you stop using it.
Customer lifetime value metrics, CLV, must just fall off a cliff.
It completely collapses. Companies that modeled their entire revenue on the assumption that you'd stay subscribed for 5 years suddenly find you leaving in 3 months, just because your AI quietly found a promotional coupon for a competitor and migrated your account while you were sleeping.
The memo mentions a few specific industries that get slaughtered here. Real estate was the one that really made me laugh out loud. They call it agent-on-agent violence.
It is a vivid image. But think about buying a house today. Historically, why do you pay a 6% commission? 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the seller's agent.
Because they have the keys.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. They have access to the MLS. They know the neighborhood comps. They handle the massive stack of legal paperwork.
It's a business built entirely on information asymmetry. But in this 2027 scenario, the AI has all the data, all of it. It has the MLS, the hyperlocal crime stats, the school district ratings, the drone footage of the roof, the entire title history of the parcel.
So my personal AI just talks directly to the seller's AI.
Instantly. Your AI pings theirs. My client offers $850,000, all contingencies waived, 10-day close. The seller's AI runs the probability matrix and accepts. The legal contracts are generated, verified, and signed via blockchain. Total time elapsed, 45 seconds.
So why on earth am I paying a human $50,000 to do that?
You aren't, and neither is anyone else. The memo says buy-side commissions compressed from 3% to under 1% basically overnight. The entire realtor profession, which is millions of jobs in the U.S., decimated, not by humanoid robots physically building houses, but by software simply removing the friction of the transaction.
The memo has this brutal line in that section. It says, turns out that a lot of what people called relationships was simply friction with a friendly face.
That hurts to read. We really like to think we have relationships with our insurance broker or our real estate agent, but really, we just needed them to navigate the complexity of this system for us. When the complexity disappears, the relationship is exposed as nothing more than a transaction cost.
And then there is DoorDash, the food delivery apps. This one was fascinating to me because I always assumed DoorDash and Uber Eats had an impenetrable moat. The network effect. Everyone has the app on their phone.
We call that a moat in traditional investing. I'm hungry, I pull out my phone, I tap the red icon. It's pure muscle memory. But again, humans have muscle memory, AI does not.
Walk me through exactly how the agents killed DoorDash.
So in 2027, coding is essentially free, right? So a couple of smart developers can launch a brand new local delivery app over a weekend. Suddenly, there are 20 competing apps in your city instead of 3.
But I'm not going to download 20 different apps and make 20 accounts. That's too much friction.
You aren't going to do that. Your agent is. Your agent doesn't have a home screen on a phone. It lives in the cloud. When you tell your phone, hey, I want pad thai from that place downtown, the agent pings all 20 delivery apps simultaneously via API. It finds the exact one that is 50 cents cheaper or 2 minutes faster.
It just plays them off against each other.
Ruthlessly. It routes your order to the absolute cheapest option every single time. And because the barrier to entry to build an app is now zero, new upstart apps launch that pass 95% of the delivery fee directly to the driver, just to get supply on their network.
So the profit margins for the platform for DoorDash or Uber Eats themselves go to zero.
The entire moat was you are lazy and loyal to the icon on your screen. The machine is neither lazy nor loyal.
It's like watching a swarm of digital locusts just eat the profit margins of the entire consumer economy. And once they finish with the delivery apps and the realtors, they go after the biggest prize of all, the global payment system.
Section 4, the payments revolt, first quarter of 2027.
I feel like Visa and MasterCard have been totally untouchable for 50 years. They are the ultimate toll booth of global capitalism.
They really are. Every single time you swipe your card, they take 2 or 3% of the transaction. We call it the interchange fee.
But as a consumer, I don't see it. The merchant pays it. I just pay the sticker price.
You don't see it directly, no. But your AI agent sees it. If your agent is tasked with optimizing your financial life down to the penny, that 3% embedded fee is a glaring inefficiency. It's a massive leak in the boat.
So how do the agents plug the leak?
They route completely around it. By early 2027, crypto stablecoins, things like USDC or PayPal USD, running on really fast blockchain networks like Solana or Ethereum Layer 2s, they are instant and they are virtually free. The cost to send $100 is a fraction of a penny.
Okay, I get the tech. But I love my credit card points. I want my Delta Sky Miles. I want my airport lounge access. I'm not giving that up just to save the local coffee shop 3%.
That's the standard human defense. But here is what happens in the market. The merchants start offering agent pricing.
Agent pricing?
Yeah. The screen says, pay with Visa, it's $100. Pay with agent using stablecoin, it's $95.
Okay. A 5% instant discount absolutely breaks my loyalty to the points.
Exactly, because the points are funded by the fee. If the fee is routed around, the rewards programs vanish anyway. The memo describes a tipping point where consumer agents start automatically converting your fiat currency to stablecoins in milliseconds at the point of sale, just to snag that discount.
And MasterCard and Visa stock just dies.
April 2027, MasterCard reports a massive drop in volume, citing agent-led price optimization. The stock drops 9% in a single trading session. And the contagion immediately hits the banking sector. Think about Capital One, Chase, Discover, Amex. Their whole consumer banking model is we give you shiny rewards, you give us swipe fees and revolving credit interest.
If the swipe fees vanish,
the rewards vanish. The lounge access vanishes, the huge sign-up bonuses vanish, and suddenly the entire consumer banking sector looks a lot less profitable.
it's a systematic, algorithmic dismantling of every middleman profit pool in the entire economy. But, and here's where the rubber really meets the road, up until this point in the timeline, the experts in the memo still thought this was just a sector rotation.
Right. They call it the sector risk fallacy.
People on financial television were saying, okay, so SaaS software takes a hit, legacy finance takes a hit, but technology always creates new jobs. We always adapt. It's the classic ATM argument.
We have to talk about the ATM argument. You hear it in every single debate about AI today. Someone will always say, well, when ATMs came out in the 70s, people said bank tellers would disappear. But actually, because ATMs made branches much cheaper to operate, banks opened way more branches, and the absolute number of human tellers actually went up.
It's the standard defense against automation anxiety. Automation lowers costs, which increases demand, which creates more jobs. Why does the memo say this time was fundamentally different?
Because ATMs aren't general intelligence. An ATM can dispense $20 bills and take a deposit. It cannot upsell you a 30-year fixed mortgage. It cannot solve a complex customer service dispute about wire fraud. It cannot manage the scheduling for the branch staff.
Right, it's a narrow tool.
The human tellers survived because they moved up the value chain. They became relationship managers and loan officers. But in 2027, the AI is moving up the value chain faster than the human possibly can.
The memo says displaced coders cannot simply move to AI management because AI is already entirely capable of that.
Exactly. If the AI can write the code and manage the agile project and do the quality assurance testing and deploy it to the server, where exactly does the human go? What is the new job?
And this brings us to the white-collar recession, and specifically, this terrifying financial concept of OpEx substitution. We really need to break this math down carefully because I think this is the core engine of the entire economic collapse.
It is absolutely the smoking gun of this scenario. In corporate finance, you have CapEx, which is capital expenditure, and OpEx, which is operating expense.
CapEx is building a new factory. OpEx is paying the workers' salaries.
Usually, technology is CapEx. You buy a faster computer, an asset, to make your human worker more productive. But AI in this scenario became OpEx substitution. It wasn't making the worker better, it was entirely replacing the worker's salary line item on the income statement.
Walk me through the numbers on that.
Okay. Imagine a mid-sized logistics company. They spend $100 million a year on white-collar staff. That's their OpEx. And they spend maybe $5 million on software and AI tools.
Okay, tracking.
The CEO looks at the new agentic tools and realizes, if I increase my AI budget to $20 million, I quadruple it, I can confidently fire half of my entire administrative staff.
So he spends $15 million more on AI.
And he saves $50 million on human salaries.
So his total spending drops from $105 billion to just $70 million.
The company becomes vastly more profitable. The AI provider OpenAI or Anthropic makes more money. The stock price goes up. But the total amount of money injected into the real economy drops by $35 million.
That $35 million is missing wages. That's $35 million of missing lattes, missing mortgages, missing car payments.
Now multiply that dynamic by the entire S&P 500. You have a massive sudden contraction in the money supply actually reaching households.
But wait, usually economists talk about a wealth effect. If the company is more profitable, the stock goes up, shareholders get rich, they spend money, it trickles down.
True in theory. But the marginal propensity to consume, which is just fancy economist talk for how much of your next dollar you actually spend, is very different for a billionaire shareholder versus a mid-level manager.
The manager spends almost all of it to live. The billionaire just invests it in other assets.
Exactly. You are structurally shifting money from spenders, the working class and middle class, to savers, the capital owners. And that absolutely kills aggregate consumption.
The memo talks about the log egg. Why didn't this show up immediately?
Right.
Why wasn't there panic in the streets in early 2027?
Because white-collar workers have a cushion. If you are a senior software engineer making $200 grand a year and you get laid off, you don't starve the next day. You have savings. You get a 3-month severance package. You have vested stock options.
You keep up appearances. You still go to the nice gym. You still buy the expensive organic groceries for your kids.
For 6 months, maybe 9 months, you tell yourself, the market is just soft. I'll find another senior role soon. But in this scenario, the other roles aren't there. Every single company is quietly hiring agents, not people.
And then the wall hits. Q3 2027.
Initial jobless claims surged to 487,000 in a single week. The dam just totally breaks.
There's a story in the memo about a Salesforce product manager. It felt very real to read.
Yeah. It's the absolute archetype of the 2020s tech success story. She was making $180,000 a year, fully remote work, vested equity, living the American dream.
And she gets cut in the ServiceNow moment ripple effect.
She spends 6 straight months applying for jobs. But every single PM role is being filled internally by agentic managers. Finally, the savings run out. She has a heavy mortgage. She has 2 kids. What does she do?
She starts driving for Uber.
She joins the gig economy out of sheer desperation. But here's the macro problem. Millions of other displaced white-collar workers are doing the exact same thing at the exact same time.
So the supply of Uber drivers just explodes overnight.
And the algorithm does exactly what algorithms are designed to do. It lowers the wage to clear the market. She ends up making $45,000 a year driving full-time.
That is a 75% drop in household income.
Now, technically, statistically, she is employed. The headline unemployment rate might not look completely catastrophic yet, but her spending power has collapsed. She isn't buying the new iPhone. She isn't renovating her kitchen. She isn't going out to eat.
And that destroys the small businesses that relied on her spending.
Yeah.
The local restaurants, the contractors, the boutiques.
It's the intelligence displacement spiral. The bottom just falls completely out of the consumer economy.
And just when you think, okay, well, it's a deep recession, but at least the banks are safe because we fixed them, after 2008, the financial system decides to immolate itself anyway. Section 6, the financial contagion.
This is where we get into the really dark plumbing of Wall Street, and specifically a ticking time bomb called private credit.
Private credit. I feel like this is a buzzword that people nod at cocktail parties but don't actually understand. What is it?
It's basically shadow banking. Instead of a mid-sized company going to JP Morgan for a loan or selling public bonds to mutual funds, they borrow billions directly from a massive private equity fund like Blackstone or Apollo.
Okay, and this market exploded in size recently, right?
It grew to $2.5 trillion by 2026. And a huge, totally disproportionate chunk of that money was lent specifically to software companies.
Why software companies? Why not manufacturing?
Because of the recurring revenue myth, lenders absolutely loved SaaS businesses. They looked at the spreadsheets and said, oh, you have 98% annual retention. Your enterprise customers never leave. Here, take $1 billion of floating rate debt.
They treated software revenue like a public utility bill, like it was mathematically guaranteed.
Precisely. They funded leveraged buyouts, LBOs. A private equity firm would buy a mature software company, like, well, let's use the memo specific example, Zendesk.
Zendesk, customer support ticketing software.
They took it private for over $10 billion.
Yeah.
And to fund that massive purchase, they loaded the company up with debt, a $5 billion direct loan, one of the largest private credit deals ever done.
And the assumption was always, Zendesk will always have millions of customers paying monthly fees so they can easily cover the interest payments.
Enter the AI agents.
The agents don't need Zendesk. They solve the customer's problem instantly over chat or phone.
Right. If I have an AI agent that pulls my tracking data, refunds my order, and apologizes in 2 seconds flat, I don't need to open a support ticket. Ticket volume across the economy crashes. Zendesk's core revenue collapses.
And they can't pay the interest on the $5 billion debt.
September 2027, the Zendesk default. The loan is marked down and trades at 58 cents on the dollar.
That is a massive, massive haircut for the lenders. But here's the part of the memo that really made my blood run cold. Who actually held that debt? It wasn't just rich hedge fund guys in Connecticut, was it?
No. And this is the great financial scandal of the 2028 scenario, the permanent capital myth.
Explain that to us.
So the giant alternative asset managers, the Apollos, the KKRs, they needed more and more money to lend out to keep the private credit machine going. So what did they do? They went out and bought life insurance companies.
Wait, Wall Street firms bought the insurance companies?
Yes. They bought massive insurers like Athene or Global Atlantic. Why? Because life insurance companies hold absolutely massive amounts of cash, annuities, grandma's retirement savings.
So they literally took grandma's annuity money.
And lent it to a private equity firm to buy Zendesk.
Oh my God.
They called it permanent capital because grandma generally can't ask for her annuity money back until she dies. It's sticky money. It seemed like a genius Wall Street arbitrage. Use cheap, stable insurance money to fund high-yield, risky software debt.
But when the risky software debt explodes because of AI...
The billion-dollar hole isn't just in the hedge fund's pocket. The hole is sitting squarely in the life insurance company's balance sheet.
And that is systemic risk. That is what scares federal regulators.
November 2027. Regulators completely panic. They realize that the safe, boring retirement money is actually backing highly leveraged bets on legacy software that just got obsoleted by artificial intelligence.
And the memo says they can't even figure out who owes what because it's all hidden offshore.
Yeah, a huge percentage of it is reinsured in places like Bermuda or the Cayman Islands to avoid capital requirements. It becomes a daisy chain of correlated bets. Everyone in the financial system was quietly betting on the exact same underlying premise, that human white-collar work would continue to exist and generate recurring corporate revenue. When that single premise broke, the entire chain snapped.
So you have a corporate crisis, a consumer spending crisis, a hidden financial crisis. And that leads us directly to the one asset class that average Americans care about more than anything else in the world, their homes.
Section 7, the mortgage market. The final blow.
Now, whenever we say the words housing crash, everyone immediately thinks of 2008.
Right. The Big Short. Ninja loans. Strippers in Vegas with 5 investment properties.
No income, no job, no assets.
This was the exact opposite of that. This was not a subprime crisis. This was a prime crisis.
Explain the difference.
The people defaulting on their mortgages in 2028 were the best borrowers on paper in the history of banking. 780 FICO scores. 20% down payments. They were the senior tech workers, the management consultants, the corporate lawyers.
The people who did everything right, the people who played by the rules.
Exactly. They bought the $1.5 million house in Austin or Seattle because the bank looked at their W-2s and said, hey, you make $250,000 a year. You can easily afford this.
And the loan was solid as long as the income was solid.
A 30-year mortgage is ultimately just a 30-year bet on human income stability. But we just described a macro world where that $250,000 income drops to a $45,000 gig economy wage basically overnight.
And you cannot pay an $8,000 monthly mortgage on an Uber driver's salary.
You can't. You try. You burn through your 401k savings. You max out your credit cards. You double your household debt-to-income ratio just trying to hold on. But eventually, the math always wins.
The memo cites the projected data. Zillow Home Value Index down 11% in San Francisco, 9% in Seattle, 8% in Austin.
And those are the tech hubs, the places that were supposed to be economically invincible because they were creating the future.
And the scary part, the memo highlights, is the structural impairment. It's not just a cyclical dip.
Right. In 2008, if you lost your finance job, you could wait 2 years for the economy to recover and eventually get your job back. In 2028, that job is never coming back. Ever.
The memo has this brutal comparison. A Claude agent does the project manager's job for $200 a month.
You cannot compete with that as a human being. No amount of government upskilling programs bridges a 1,000x cost differential. If the cognitive job can be done by software, the market value of the human labor falls to the localized cost of electricity.
So the house is permanently repriced. It's no longer worth $1.5 million because the person living in it or anyone else who wants to buy it can only afford a $400,000 mortgage.
Real estate prices are ultimately just a derivative of local wages. If local wages structurally collapse, real estate structurally collapses. It's economic gravity.
So we are in the absolute depths of it now.
Yeah.
June 2028, the economy is broken. Where is the government in all this? Why aren't they stepping in and fixing this?
Section 8, Government and Society. The battle against time.
Because usually, in a crisis this deep, the government just throws massive amounts of money at the problem. Stimulus checks, bailouts.
They desperately want to, but they hit a brick wall, the tax crisis.
We briefly touched on this earlier, but let's go much deeper. They call it the tax on time.
Look at the United States federal budget. Look at where the actual money comes from. Roughly 80% of federal revenue comes from individual income taxes and payroll taxes.
It's a tax on humans spending time working.
Correct. It is fundamentally a tax on human labor. If you replace that labor with capital, if you replace the human worker with a GPU cluster, you permanently destroy your own tax base.
Because the GPU doesn't pay payroll tax for Social Security or Medicare. Microsoft pays a corporate tax on their end-of-year profits, but that rate is much, much lower than the combined income and payroll taxes of 10,000 upper-middle-class employees.
Exactly. So in the memo simulation, federal tax receipts plunged 12% almost instantly, just as the demand for unemployment benefits and food stamps absolutely explodes. The deficit completely blows out.
It's a fiscal death spiral.
Yeah.
They need more money than ever before to stabilize society, and they are collecting less than ever.
And the political gridlock that follows, honestly, this part of the memo felt like it could have been written this morning. It sounded so entirely plausible.
They mention a specific proposed bill, the Transition Economy Act.
That was the legislative silver bullet. Direct cash transfers universal basic income, essentially funded by a new federal tax on AI inference.
A robot tax. If you use an AI token, you pay a fraction of a penny to the government.
Sounds simple, right? But the politics are impossible. Let's role-play the arguments for a second.
Right.
Imagine you are the senator from the right.
Okay, I'm the conservative senator on Fox News. I say, this is madness. This is literal Marxism. If we tax our AI compute, the Chinese will just run their AI tax-free. They will completely dominate the next century of warfare and economics. We will kill our own innovation just to fund socialist handouts. We absolutely cannot tax compute.
It's a powerful argument. National security, global competitiveness. Now imagine you are the senator from the progressive left.
Okay, I say, these tech monopolies are looting the country. They are stealing the labor and the data of the American people and hoarding the wealth in server farms. We need to tax them at 90%. We need to break up the AI labs today.
But then the Pentagon lobbyist walks into the room and says, Senator, if you break up these labs, our defense systems stop working, we lose the AI arms race, and everyone starves anyway.
Regulatory capture. The left warns that the AI labs are writing the laws to protect themselves. The right warns that the government is stifling human progress. And in the middle, absolutely nothing happens. Meanwhile, the streets are filling up. The memo mentions a movement called Occupy Silicon Valley.
The societal resentment is palpable. The memo describes thousands of demonstrators blockading the headquarters of Anthropic and OpenAI in San Francisco.
Which makes sense. In
Yeah.
2008, we hated the Wall Street bankers. But at least the bankers were, people. We could see them in their suits. Here, the villain is an invisible server rack.
The memo says it's hard to imagine the public hating anyone more than the bankers in 2008, but the AI labs are making a serious run at it because the wealth inequality is so nakedly visible. The wealth isn't trickling down at all, it's just endlessly aggregating in the cloud, owned by a tiny fraction of the population.
And yet the memo concludes that the real villain of the story isn't Sam Altman or the bankers or the politicians. The villain is time.
That's the most profound point in the whole piece. AI capability evolves exponentially. It's Moore's law on steroids, but human government and society only evolve linearly.
We move at the speed of congressional committees. AI moves at the speed of light.
By the time Congress drafts a 2,000-page bill to regulate GPT-5, GPT-6 is already deployed and has fundamentally changed the economic landscape again. We simply cannot adapt fast enough. The biological hardware is too slow.
So that brings us to the end of the memo, the outro, what they call the intelligence premium unwind.
This is the philosophical core. If you listening take nothing else away from this nightmare scenario, take this concept.
Break it down for us.
For all of recorded human history, 50,000 years, human intelligence was the ultimate scarce resource. It was the absolute bottleneck of progress. If you wanted to cure a disease or build a suspension bridge or negotiate a complex peace treaty, you needed a highly trained, smart human brain.
And because that brain was scarce, it was highly valuable. We paid a massive premium for it in the labor market. Doctors, corporate lawyers, senior software engineers, they sit at the top of the socioeconomic pyramid because they possess the scarce commodity.
Our entire society is structured around this premise. IQ correlates with income, elite education correlates with status. It's the foundation of the meritocracy.
But in this 2028 scenario,
intelligence suddenly becomes infinitely abundant. It becomes like electricity or like tap water. It's everywhere, it's incredibly cheap, and it's practically instant.
And basic economics tells us when a historically scarce resource becomes infinitely abundant, its market price crashes to zero.
The intelligence premium completely evaporates. The core asset that you built your entire life on, your ability to process information, to analyze data, to write code, to synthesize reports, is being rapidly repriced to the cost of electricity.
Honestly, that is terrifying to internalize.
Right.
But also, I think we have to pull back here. We have to take a deep breath.
Yes, we do.
Because we are not actually in June 2028. We are in February 2026. The S&P is near all-time highs. The canary in the coal mine is still singing.
The memo intentionally ends with that reality check. It says, current date, February 2026.
This is a scenario. It is a financial model. It is not a guaranteed prophecy.
But it is a massive challenge. It challenges us to ruthlessly examine our assumptions. Are we betting our portfolios and our careers on a human intelligence premium that might simply not exist in 5 years?
Right. If your entire competitive edge in life is just, I'm smart and I work hard at a computer, you might be fundamentally shorting the wrong asset.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to start thinking about what actual value looks like in a post-intelligence scarcity world.
And I was thinking about this before we recorded. If intelligence is free, what becomes the new scarce resource?
What's your theory?
I think it might be trust and verifiable human physical presence. Think about it. When every email, every contract, every voice memo can be perfectly faked by an agent, the ability to prove you are a human being standing in a room doing a physical thing that becomes incredibly valuable.
Cryptographic proof of humanity combined with physical labor.
Yeah. It turns the whole tech optimism narrative completely upside down. We are so trained to think technological progress is always good for the economy. This memo argues, what if the technology is so uniquely great that the economy fundamentally breaks?
It forces a decoupling. It decouples technological progress from human economic well-being. And historically, that is the scariest decoupling of all.
Well, I think I need a strong drink. And maybe I need to go learn how to weld.
Welding is looking like a pretty solid career choice right now. Or plumbing. The AI agents can't fix a leaking pipe under your sink just yet.
Not yet, anyway. Hey, thank you for guiding us through this memo. It was really heavy, but absolutely necessary.
Better to see the iceberg from a distance before you actually hit it.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, thanks for diving deep with us today. Take a hard look at your portfolio, take a look at your personal skill set, and maybe, just maybe, make sure you aren't just a friction point waiting to be optimized.
See you all in the present.
Goodbye, everyone.